It's a horror doubleheader with a couple films that represent two of the reasons I think this is the best era in horror cinema. Let's talk about it. Hello, and welcome to Matty Loves Movies. I'm Matt. As I mentioned at the top, we're going to talk about a couple horror movies that just recently came out that represent a couple things that make this, in my opinion, the best era in horror films. And we'll talk about each thing as we talk about each movie. But let's start with the first one, which is Undertone, which is a supernatural horror movie written and directed by Ian Tuason. And I went into this movie actually not knowing anything about it. I had seen that people were talking about it, and I had seen the cover, like I'd seen the poster. But I intentionally didn't watch any trailers. I didn't read anything about it. I didn't even know the premise. So I went in very blind for this movie, which is actually one of my favorite ways to watch movies. And I would recommend with this one that if you can, try to go in fairly blind on this. So if you would like to go in blind, just skip to the Ready or Not 2 review. There are chapters, there's time codes in the description. Just skip on over there. Just know that I liked this movie and I do recommend it. So go watch it if you want to go in completely blind. And now that they are gone, I am going to I'm not going to spoil. I'm not actually going to go very deep into what it's about or anything like that, because I do think that letting it unfold is the best way to do it. But this is a very simple horror movie because it is it's fairly low budget. It's an A24 movie, and that kind of brings me to the thing, one of the things that makes me love this era of horror movies right now, and that is, and it's such a divisive term, the one that I almost used here, and then I'm gonna say anyway, and that is elevated horror. And it can be, people can use it in a way that kind of belittles other types of horror, but I don't see it that way. It's not, to me, the term elevated horror represents a certain type of film that that doesn't stick to a lot of the tropes or a lot of the methods that are used in a lot of other horror movies. And not to say that those methods aren't good, and they can't be effective, but they do come at it from a different point of view. And while elevated horror probably isn't the right term for it, that is kind of the term that we use going forward. I don't think necessarily calling something elevated dismisses the other stuff. If you live in a tree house and I live in a house, one of those is not objectively better. That's not true. It'd be so cool to live in a tree house. But you get what I'm saying. Just because something is considered elevated doesn't necessarily make it inherently better. It just makes it different. It puts it on a different plane, basically. And one plane is not better than the other. But instead of elevated horror, I don't know what term I would use. I maybe should have thought of that before starting this recording. It's not the elevated or the smarts that it takes or anything like that really attracts me to this type of film, because it's an A24 movie, and A24 movies have a certain type of feel. They have a certain type of expectation that comes with them. They're probably not going to be the biggest crowd pleasers, and not to say that they aren't going to be loved by many. There are a lot of A24 things, horror movies and not horror movies, that are very, very well loved. But I would say that's not its primary focus. The big difference to me in this type of horror movie, and then the type that A24 and other companies are producing right now is the difference between evocation and provocation. Now, I think provocation has its place in horror. I think things like jump scares and stuff like that. While I don't love overuse of jump scares, I do think that jump scares have their place. I think that an effectively used jump scare could be very, very good in a film, and it can set a tone, and it can set a mood, and it can force you, provoke a feeling in you of dread or fear or whatever. It startles you, certainly. But there's a difference when it comes to something that is evocative, something that evokes a feeling in you. And this is not contained to horror. That any type of medium can evoke or provoke. I think that there's certain types that some people will talk about movies that try to force emotion on you, try to force you to cry. So stuff like the TV show This Is Us and stuff like that. That's not anything negative about This Is Us, but things that are kind of designed to provoke a response from you. And that's the kind of thing, is that I think when people use terms about those type of films, they're not really hitting the mark on it, because there's a difference, as I said, between evoking and provoking. To provoke something is to try to force it out, to force you to feel this feeling. To evoke something is to lead you to feeling that feeling. It guides you as you get into the feeling, and then it encourages you to feel that feeling. And it can be a subtle difference. It can be a very, very very, very wide difference between those two. But kind of sometimes if you feel it, which thing you're doing. And that's what it is with Undertone for me. I feel like this movie, as like a lot of its predecessors in this type of horror film, have kind of perfected this idea of evoking terror, evoking dread, evoking fear, leading you to those things by setting a stage that allows you to feel those feelings and kind of pulls them into you naturally. And this one, I think, does it beautifully. Let me just start with the sound design. This film is about a podcaster, a paranormal podcaster, who does a remote podcast with her friend, and they start listening to these files that he brings on. She's, the main character in this movie. She is a skeptic, and so her job is kind of to debunk all this stuff. And then the movie happens. I'm not going to really go into detail about what happens there, but the sound design in this movie is incredible. I think that in a just world, this would be, at least right now, front runner for the Oscar for sound design. I think that too many movies like this, or better or worse, have been overlooked for that kind of recognition, simply because it's a horror movie. I can't say for sure it's going to get overlooked, and I like to think that anything is eligible for any of those awards. But in all likelihood, it probably will get overlooked for that. But right now, it's the best sound design I've heard all year. The film's use of sound in conjunction with its cinematography, which I also think is very, very good. It's very, very strong. The fact that they use, and this is also a common thing in kind of these modern horror movies, and even in saying that, I've said this a lot. I keep talking about uses that are things that are common in these type of movies, but while also saying that they aren't using certain tropes. I think they are creating new tropes, perhaps, but they're tropes that really work for me. And there's a thing with the cinematography in these type of films where they will frame a scene in a way that makes you question exactly what you're supposed to be looking at, what you're supposed to be seeing. If there is something you're supposed to be seeing, perhaps there's nothing there, perhaps there is. It's that kind of a thing, and that is what I mean. It evokes that dread in you because you're kind of on the lookout. You know you're watching a horror movie. The movie knows you're watching a horror movie, and it kind of leads you to these feelings with by questioning exactly what you're seeing on screen or what you're supposed to be seeing on screen. And that's not to say that it's in a confusing way. It's not putting something there and making you question, wonder what is happening. It's like in the movie Invisible Man that came out a few years ago, how sometimes it'll just focus on a certain area of the room, but never reveal if the invisible man is standing there or not, but make you feel the presence of the invisible man by simply focusing on that. And you as the viewer are never sure if that person is there, but you feel the uneasy feeling of perhaps there is somebody standing there. And that's the kind of cinematography that is employed in this film. And when you combine that with the sound design that is just very, very good. And I'm not just talking about the creepy sound design stuff. I'm talking throughout the whole movie. The sound design is really, really impeccable and really takes you on this journey because it is mostly audio based. This film, although there's always something on the screen, it is mostly audio based, and it's a film that actually only takes place in one location, basically in this one home, with very few on-screen characters. Most of the characters in this movie are only in audio form, so it is terrifying. Is what I'll have to say. It is one of the scariest movies I've seen in quite a while, and that is a subjective thing. I am not easily scared by films, especially ones that employ a provoking attempt at horror. But ones that are more evocative like this definitely do hit me a little bit better. And this is one that hit me really, really well. I found myself many times looking at the screen in just sheer dread and terror, wondering, and there was anything scary going on the screen, but wondering what might happen next. And a lesser filmmaker would have put something for me to be scared of at those moments. And I think that the magic of this is that there isn't always a scary thing to look at in those moments. They have achieved what they are trying to do by making you feel those emotions, despite there not being anything actually scary on screen right now. Another thing that I think is done really well in this film is that some shots are long and sweeping and move around a room very slowly, and you never quite know when you're going to see what you're going to see, when you're going to see it, what I already mentioned there. Some shots are very fast, and I think that the very fast ones are also very, very effective. Because like I said, a lesser filmmaker might linger on some of these things a little bit longer to make sure you see it. But I think the true terror in it is the thinking about if you saw what you saw seconds, minutes after you can no longer see it. I think that is also an extremely effective use of horror evocation in this case. So Undertone. That's really as much as I'm going to go into it, because I do think that people need to go see this film. I have seen, I try to stay away from reviews a lot since I am also a critic. I try to stay away from other people's reviews until after I've kind of made my feelings known on movies. And even after, I don't usually watch a lot of reviews or read a lot of reviews anymore like I used to. I have come across a few people saying things about it, and it's mostly very, very positive stuff. I have seen a few people who've been a little down on it. Some people talking about how the movie it could have been, or talking about some of the amateurish mistakes that are made in it. And I'll tell you, I mean, this is the director, writer and director, Ian Towson, is a first-time director. I believe I called him Towson just now, and his name is Towson. But it is his feature directorial debut, and so I think that he has things to learn for sure. I think you get that with any first-time director, no matter how much of a masterpiece they've made in their first film. I think they've always got something they can learn to go forward, and I think that is a good thing. I think that you don't want to peak with your first movie. You don't want a director whose movie you liked for that to have been their best effort, you know. So I look forward to what we see from him in the future. I know he is making the next Paranormal Activity movie, which I think is genius. I think it's a stroke of genius because that is technology based. I want to see technology movies from this guy, you know, and whatever just interests him, I want to see that as well. But people who know me in my personal life know that I love screen life movies that take place from behind, like within a computer. You know, everything you see is you know, coming from what's being displayed on a screen. I love those type of movies. I would love to see him take a crack at one of those if the spirit moves him in that direction. But yeah, I think Paranormal Activity is a great next step for him, because it does kind of fall in a similar line, it's a similar type of feel for it. And I think that he can, if he uses some of the same techniques, and if he, you know, if it's not a sophomore slump, I think that he can maybe revitalize that franchise. But Undertone is a recommendation from me. If you like elevated horror, if you like horror movies that evoke terror, dread, fear in your soul, rather than, you know, try to force it out of you, I think this movie is for you. And if you're not sure, I say go watch it. Go see it in a theater. I think the theatrical experience in this case is valuable. I always think the theatrical experience is valuable, but that's just, I'm a theater guy. I think that if you watch this at home, you're going to also see a really good movie. I think, especially if you have like surround sound and have a really good sound system, I think there is something to be said about the way that a theater will present the film with the sound, because there are certain times when there are sounds that you need to know which side of the room they're coming from. So in a situation where you have that surround sound option is very useful. So I do recommend this in the theater. However, as I said, if you can't, that makes sense. Wait for it to come out. When it comes out on home video, watch it then. I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy this film. Which brings me to the second movie, which is Ready or Not, Here I Come, the second movie in the Ready or Not series. And it represents a second thing that has made this era of horror filmmaking my favorite of all time, or at least one of my favorites. I wouldn't say that my favorite horror movies of all time come from this era, but I would say consistently this era has produced great horror, and it's become probably my favorite era of horror filmmaking. And the thing this one brings, which is one of my favorite things, is the comedy horror. And yes, I realize the order I said that in, not horror comedy, comedy horror. Well, they are, you know, some of them are horror comedies as well, but a horror comedy is a comedy with a horror bent to it, or with horror mannerisms or horror elements in them. I would say what these type of movies, things from like Radio Silence, who directed Ready or Not, Here I Come, and Christopher Landon, who is one of my current favorite modern horror filmmakers, what they do is a horror movie straight up. They aren't trying to take the piss out of the genre. They aren't making a comedy and putting horror elements in it. They are making a horror movie with a comedic sensibility. and I just love the way that goes. I'm a huge horror comedy fan, but I'm loving this comedy horror thing that we're getting, because I would not call Ready or Not, Here I Come, or Ready or Not comedies. I would call them horror movies. But the comedic sensibility that these filmmakers have in these allows them to make it with that sensibility in mind, while also staying true to this genre that they're making it in. And I just really, really enjoy this. As far as Ready or Not 2, or Ready or Not, Here I Come, or Ready or Not 2 is what a lot of people are calling it. I think even the promotional material is sometimes calling it that. It doesn't matter. For Ready or Not 2, I didn't love it as much as I loved the original, but I don't think that really matters here. Like a sequel is not required to be better. It's not it's not required to make you feel the same way the first one did. In fact, it's a very rare thing. People will say that all the time. It's very rare that a sequel is better than the original, and there's a reason for that. It's because the original bring something new to you that the sequel is not going to be. It's going to be impossible for it to bring to you, because you've already experienced a lot of the elements that you love. And even when it changes it up like this one does, for the most part changes it up. There are some elements that are the same and by design, but it also takes it in a different direction, which I think which I love about again, this modern era. Christopher Landon with his Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You. Number one, those films don't feel like they should work as well as they do, and they absolutely do. I love those films. But the first one, straight up Groundhog Day horror comedy, or comedy horror. The second one starts to follow that same path, and then it goes in a different direction into a different type of movie. And I think is what all sequels should do. Not necessarily start out in the same direction. I mean, I think if you've got a clear vision of how to make a different movie with a sequel and make it good and make it honor the original while also feeling unique, definitely do that. But I think that if you're going to make these kind of horror sequels, sometimes you have to kind of dabble in the familiar in them, and then you can venture out into other things. I'm not going to, again, on this, go into any spoilers on how this movie changes direction, but there's a point where it does. And excuse me. And if you love the first Ready or Not movie, I think you're going to like this one as well. I can't see a lot of people who love that first one who leave this one going, no, that didn't really work for me. I'm not to say that there won't be. I'm certain there will, but I'm not going to see. I can't envision a lot of people feeling that way. What I love about this Ready or Not series is how there's this little. It's similar to kind of the John Wick movies, and that's not a franchise that I love like a lot of people love it, but I do appreciate it, and I appreciate any franchise or movie, book, show, anything that will create a mythology within their own universe, this widespread, this far-reaching kind of history that will consider the history of the characters and the world that it's set in. I'm just a sucker for that kind of thing. It's why I love things like Lord of the Rings. It's why I love things like Star Wars. It's why I love things like Dungeons and Dragons. Why I play tabletop RPGs is there this kind of long, fantastic history that you get with those type of things. This built-in world, or this world that's created behind the world that you're actually experiencing, and I love that. And you know, this continues that lineage, that legacy of this history that exists within these films. This Ready or Not, Here I Come has a lot of it kind of feels like to the type of movie that's tailor-made for someone like me, because it brings in a lot of co-stars in this movie that just are the people I would pick if I were the one casting this movie. You got people like Sarah Michelle Gellar. I'm a big Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. It's my favorite series of all time. Got Sean Hatosi, who is a very underrated dude who kind of always feels like the kind of person you could just hang out with. It's just got a bunch. Elijah Wood. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, as I mentioned before, but I grew up along with Elijah Wood, so it was not in a way that I knew him, but like I grew up with him on my screens as he was growing. So there's a certain kinship I have there with him, but just a lot of actors in these movies that I really enjoy and that I would definitely pick if I were picking these, casting these characters, which makes it feel both new and nostalgic, which is nice. It's a weird balance that you rarely get, and that's kind of the point that I was talking about earlier with a sequel that can both tread ground that is familiar but also feel original and unique. That's kind of that's part of it, is the nostalgia you feel from those type of actors being in it if you're my age, and the newness of seeing them in different roles than you're used to seeing them in, or seeing this universe unfold in a fairly original way. But Ready or Not, Here I Come is going to be a recommend from me. But honestly, you don't need me to tell you that. If you like the original, you're probably going to see this movie. If you didn't like the original, I doubt you're going to see this movie. So this is more just for me to get to talk about it. I think that as I said before, I think that there's a lot of people who are just going to enjoy it, even if it doesn't scratch the same itch the original did, or I think it'll scratch an itch that the original did, even if it doesn't scratch it quite as well. If it doesn't, reach any new territory for you, that's fine. It's still a very entertaining, tense, and often funny time at the film at the cinema. So, talk to me in the comments. Have you seen these movies? What did you think of them? Have I convinced you to watch either one of them? What do you think of modern horror movies? Do you agree that this era of horror filmmaking is among the best, or do you think that or do you disagree and think that it is that is a step down from what we've had in the past? How do you feel about elevated horror? And again, I'm not. If you have a problem with that term, I understand. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking how you feel about that type of film. Talk to me in the comments. Thanks.